Yes, it's good to them too.
But power got to my head.
He shot us.
We're going to call the order. We have a quorum present. I think everybody's here but Councilperson Brandon Jones. We're going to start workshop at 6 p.m. today. I'd like to remind everybody microphones are on, they're live, no matter how much you whisper or chat, these pick up about anything that you say. Just be aware of that. And we're going to start with looking over what our agenda has to offer today. So I'll go through that really quickly. Agenda item A is going to be discussion of the consent and regular agenda items. We have a city charter review presentation coming up. We have an enhanced resident satisfaction survey tool and improvements presentation coming up. We have invocation by Councilmember Bob Troyer. We have the pledge to the flags through Councilmember Brandon Jones. Kristen, can you do that if Brandon isn't here?
Yes.
Item C, public hearing. Go through these pretty quickly. Public hearing, consideration of adoption of Business 121 corridor plan. Discussions, concerns about that? Item 2, public hearing, consideration of resolution of the City Council certifying the City of Lewisville is eligible to receive grant assistance. Anybody like to talk about that before in workshop?
Do we really need that?
My husband says yes.
Okay, we do.
Item D, visitor forum. Item E, consent agenda. If anybody would like to pull an item from the consent agenda, please speak up right now. We'll go through those one at a time. Jennifer, I've lost the consent agenda item. Item 3, City Council minutes. Item 4, approval of an agreement for the Advocacy Center, Advocacy and Consulting Incorporated. The amount of $72,000 annually for government relationship services and authorization for the city manager or a designee to execute the agreement. Item 5, approval of professional services agreement between the City of Lewisville and CEI Engineering Association, Inc. for professional engineering consulting services. Agenda item 6, approval of a second amendment to the agenda agreement between the City of Lewisville and Good Work Corporation for mowing and landscaping in Zone 5. The amount of $51,948. Consent agenda 7, approval of interlocal agreement with the Lewisville Independent School District regarding the continued implementation of elementary school resource rover program. Item 8, approval of resolution of the City Council of the City of Lewisville approving the agreement for the furnishing of traffic signal equipment by municipality with the state of Texas, acting through the Texas Department of Transportation.
Question.
Yes.
So on the memorandum on the front sheet it says $284,000, but if you go to the reimbursement page it says $222,000.
David, you want to confirm those numbers? We'll keep going through. Will you confirm what numbers they are? Thank you.
How long do these, what's the life expectancy of these? The signals? I mean, if they're not knocked down?
Well, I mean, signals can last for, 20, 30.
Okay.
Now, sometimes the equipment itself, some of the little components don't last quite that long, but in general.
I noticed we have something new on our lights all over the city. What is that? Like that little camera thing?
I believe that might be Chris Lee. Is that something of yours, or is that?
No, well, I know there's been a shift to change the traffic detection systems, and I believe that's what you're doing.
Yeah, we're actually changing our detection system. The old detection, we do detection of both cameras. The new cameras we're putting out there now are later.
Okay, that's what it was. Because I was like, oh, we got some new equipment here. And then another intersection has got, no, it's not here. Oh, it's here. Okay, great.
So David, he's saying that in section 3 of the contract, is that correct? It shows $222,000 is the max. But the memo is saying it's for more money than that. We just maybe have that ready by the time we get out there.
Yeah.
Talk about it.
Do we need to pull that for discussion out there?
That's attachment A. Actually, it's attachment B, the cost estimate.
We can, let's see if David can get it before we get out there. If not, we can pull it before we go out to open.
And then Jennifer, I found it. I'm sorry, I just overlooked it. Item 10, approval of resolution for the acceptance of the 2025 State and Local Cybersecurity Grant Award in the amount of $39,074.
Did you miss one?
Did I miss one? Did I miss that? Oh, that's an important one. Item 9, approval of a resolution calling for the May 3rd, 2025 Lewisville City Council General Election. Approval election calendar and authorization for the mayor to sign the election order. Any discussion about those items? Anybody like to pull an item, and we'll put an asterisk by the one regarding the differences of amounts.
This is a light agenda.
Well, we have charter review, which is going to be meaty.
Yeah, it's going to be meaty.
We're going into regular hearing. Item 11, consideration of ordinance amending the fee schedule for the city of Lewisville by amending fees related to solid waste and recycling services and presentation related to implementation of solid waste changes citywide. Any questions for workshop? All right, then we'll go into reports. Return to workshop necessary, and then I don't think we'll have a closed session this time, but
We don't.
we'll go into that. Okay, so at this point, let's go through, if there's no discussion for any of those items, let's go through and you look at the city charter review recommendation. Human Resource Director Tad Phillips, the Charter Review Commission member Stephen South will present the PowerPoint documentation or presentation. Thank you.
All right, good evening. So I really appreciate you all describing this item as meaty. I think it makes Steve and I feel important, so thank you very much. See, is this the right day? Yeah, there we go. So I think it's important to note for this presentation tonight, this is for informational purposes for you all. This is for your consideration. Happy to answer any questions from either of us. We have commission members here tonight as well as we go through it. And I'll address this later in the presentation, but it's meant for an action item for y'all at a later date. So today's really for us to walk through the recommendations from the commission and share those with you. So starting off, I know we as staff, I know Claire, Liz, myself, those of us that were involved in spending this time with the commissioners over recent months, really appreciate the council, who the council selected. They were wonderful folks to work with. We had Dean Steve Southwell, who co-present with me today, Russ Curbo, James McClinton, and Guy Harris. And I know we have Russ and James here today with us, so they've been wonderful to work with. We really appreciate the time of all the commissioners. You want to give any intro remarks?
Well, I just want to say thanks to city staff. They did a tremendous job in gathering the information for us as they do for you. A lot of research involved in this and tracking down information from those other cities, comparison cities. That was tough work, so thank you for that. And thank you, council, for your faith and trust in us.
Thank you for your hard work.
So let's kind of set the stage, and then we'll get to recommendations from the commission. So setting the stage, the city charter, section 11.22, specifies the creation of this charter commission and the duties of this commission. Those are specifically to inquire into the effectiveness of the city charter and determine whether any provisions require revision, to propose, if deemed desirable, any amendments to improve the charter, and then to report its findings and present any proposed amendments to the city council. So that third duty of the commission is what we're here to do tonight with you all. The process that we've gone through, again referencing 11.22 of the charter, it does specify that a charter commission is created once every 5 years. And so you all appointed back in the summertime, and so the current commissioners, the group of 5, was appointed in the summertime, and their 6-month term, as per the charter, sunsets this next month. And so what we did over this process was we took recommendations from the last 2 charter commission, and Steve and I were just comparing notes. This is his 3rd consecutive charter commission, so he is the king of charter commissions. He was here for both of the prior 2, the last 2, and so we went through all of the recommendations that didn't necessarily go forward on ballots, reviewed those with the commission. We also included items that we heard that council members might have had an interest in, as well as items that staff identified might have been some inconsistencies or challenges that we saw as well. And so those were all the inputs. And then as we got into the process, then the commissioners put their own touch on the process and identified additional items that they wanted us to go look further into as well. For those that are watching at home or those in the room that don't necessarily, are not here for the charter, which I would be surprised if you're not here for the charter, but what is a charter? It's the fundamental law of a home rule city in Texas. So basically what Texas law allows is that the city can define its charter, it builds its own rules, and as long as those rules aren't in conflict with state or federal law, this is what governs how the city operates. And so as you see on the screen here, our charter is divided into a variety of sections, including how the government's formed, how city council works, certain offices such as city manager and city attorney, the election process, etc., everything you see here on the screen. Ours was created in 1963, and most recent history, this is just a relatively recent history on charter elections. These aren't recommendations from the commission, these are ones that council has actually said, take these, put these on the ballot, let's see what happens. And since 2000, there have been 4 charter elections, in 2001 and 2004, each with a bunch of, with 9 and 13 propositions respectively. Over these 4 elections, in 01, 04, 17, and 21, there's a total of 26 propositions that have gone to the voters, and 25 of those 26 have passed. The 2 most recent elections in 2017, just to refresh y'all's memories, there were 2 items brought. One was to clarify what happens when there's a vacancy in council, if it was more than a year left in the term or not, as well as to the creation of residential districts. Both of those passed in 2017. Out of the most recent commission in 2021, 4 propositions were brought forward, and 3 of those 4 passed. Those that passed included increasing the council size, addressing some budget language, powers of the council, and then the one item that's gone forward since 2000 that did not pass was the question of whether a planning commission member must own real property to be on the planning commission, and that one failed at 46%.
Yeah, so we convened in August, got together and had staff go through some of this history with us and refresh some memories, talk about what we had done in the past, and just kind of bring up those topics. Again, some of them were brought by council, some of them by staff, some of them we came up with. So we spent 3 meetings kind of doing a deep dive in that stuff, asking lots of questions, bugging the heck out of staff. I will say we did not necessarily agree on everything initially when things were brought up, but we had some good consensus, and I think we've got some things to present to you that you can pass. So then we had a final vote in our December meeting, and that was it. Great collaboration. We just appreciate staff so much on that.
Great teamwork. So this, out of the commission, what this commission voted on, this is just a summary. It's a little bit of a busy slide, but what it's meant to depict is that the commission considered 10 different items. Of those 10 items, 9 of those with the check marks next to them are being brought forward for y'all's consideration today. There's one item, as we went through, there's a prior item tied to 3.07 powers of council and contractor bonding, and as we look closer at that, we identified at a staff level that we didn't think it was a necessary change, and the commission agreed, and so that is not part of the commission's recommendations. But I do think it's important to know, we do look backwards and identify things that prior commissions had looked at, but there's a lot of new ideas that came out of this cycle, and so the green on the right indicates of all the items considered, many of those were new topics that had not been considered by prior commissions. So out of the 10 on the screen, what you see on the next is really the topical areas that we're going to dive into today. These are the 6 recommended areas that the commission are bringing forward as recommendations to council. And those are, item 1 is council compensation, item 2 is procedures for passing an ordinance, item 3 is the role of the city secretary, item 4 is filing for office, item 5 is the charter commission size, and then item 6 is actually mixing 4 items from the prior page. We've got some ideas around some possible correction language that could get at a variety of smaller issues. And we'll talk about each of these in depth. Notice these are each numbered here, so as we go through, the numbers tie back to items 1 through 6 on this presentation. So we'll tag team on each of these, starting with council compensation. And so one of the things the commission wanted us to do is we looked at how much do other cities pay their city council members. And so we looked at our regular comparison, 17 cities. What we looked at was on a per month basis. Our charter is written where Both the mayor and city council members are paid $50 per meeting, but to make apples and apples, we put it on a monthly basis, so we said approximately $100 a month for our city council members. And as you see in the chart here, they're sorted from low to high, but our council pay is very low compared to our 17 comparison cities. One of the things we heard from the commission was they said, well, let's kind of push Fort Worth and Dallas to the side. Those are behemoths, they're a little bit different. Let's ignore those two and let's focus on the remaining 15. And so we did that. And what we found was the average mayor pay for the 15 cities was $697 per month. Again, ours is $100 today. And that the average council pay per month was $469. Again, ours is $100 today. So with this information, the commission looked at this as well as some other things we presented and came up with this recommendation.
So what we came up with by consensus is the compensation of $300 per month for council members and $400 a month for the mayor, kind of recognizing there's a little bit more involved in that. And just taking it away from the per meeting basis and just set it monthly. Now, we did have some discussion and staff brought us a great proposal to put an automatic inflator in there with that. There just wasn't consensus to do that, and we were a little worried about how voters would take it, automatic pay raises. So it does kind of kick the can down the road a little bit, but we think this does kind of get you towards the middle of the pack, not quite to the average, but certainly better. You know, and I just want to say for the record, you know, nobody in this room asked us to come do that. There was no council member saying, give me a raise. This has just been a topic that's come up in the prior charter review commissions. We think it's about fairness and equity, and you know, I know none of you does it for the money. If you did, you'd starve. I think you'd do better, you know, working at McDonald's or somewhere, but also recognizing that for the future, there may be council members that, you know, can't afford to serve because they need to make, they need to work overtime or something, you know what I'm saying? So I think just for the future, this is a good idea, and, you know, we hope you'll put that on the ballot.
So that's compensation, item 1. Item 2, this is how ordinances are passed. So this actually came from some council feedback previously. Our charter has unique language. So basically in 3.11a, it describes how council can pass an ordinance. Currently, our charter language places council in the challenging position of either declaring an emergency as defined by our charter, or an ordinance being read 3 times. And therefore you see, like the example on the screen, it's a recent example of an ordinance that comes forward and at the end it says, and declaring an emergency. That's consistent with what our charter says, but that is a means by which the ordinance can come after 1 reading versus waiting for 3 readings. And so our first question was, how does this compare to other cities? Is this common in other cities? And what we identified was of our 17 cities, those same 17 cities again, 88% require a single reading with no 3 readings, no emergency language, nothing to that effect. We did find 2 cities that do require 2 readings. One of them uses the emergency language similar to us, the other does not, and typically takes it to 2 readings. So out of 17 cities, there's only 1 that's practically going for more than 1 reading at a time. And so we found that the market data on this really clearly indicated that there's been movement over time of councils to move away from the additional amount of time required to go to 3 readings. I think, as you'll see with some of our other recommendations here, these provisions within the charter predate things such as the Texas Open Meeting Act and other provisions that create transparency and clarity. And so obviously there's a history there. Yeah, so I mentioned the first 2. I think it's also important to know that our 3 reading language currently in our charter was created we believe it was created to assure proper notice. And so the charter was created in 1963. The Texas Open Meetings Act wasn't even created until later, until 1967, and amended thereafter. So those laws are what created rules that exist today for cities requiring written notice, requiring 72-hour notice, etc. And it also specifies language around emergency provisions. And so in the end, using all this information, we brought this to the commission and recommended language at the bottom here that effectively would get rid of the 3 readings requirement would get rid of the emergency language and rather just have ordinances take effect after 1 reading, as you see at the majority of other cities out there.
This just codifies what you already do today. I mean, I don't know if any of you can think of the last time something took 3 readings to pass. Everything's an emergency, nothing's an emergency. I'll just tell you anecdotally from probably the first time I got upset enough to go to the big room and attend a council meeting. I remember whatever it was that I was upset over, the reading was declaring an emergency, and I was like, well, how dare they? That's not an emergency. So I think there's probably other people that hear that, get confused, they don't understand you're just working around a limitation. I know we've also in the past had council vacancies or absences that have made this part challenging. So I think this would make things a little easier on you, make one less thing that Liz has to say in every meeting. So.
Awesome. That's item 2, procedures for passing an ordinance. Item 3 is city secretary. So this, we had some good discussion. Some of the discussion around this was centered around that the majority of comparison cities appoint and manage the city secretary role through the city manager. We also acknowledge with the commission the actions that this council had taken by putting the city secretary under the city manager back in the fall. And so with those things in mind, and it being a common practice that city secretary report to city manager, we developed the following language at the bottom to update the role of city secretary in 4.03 to move from reporting to this, or being appointed by the city council to the city manager.
So if you know me, I'm a computer programmer, and part of my job is to try to figure out how to abuse things and keep users from doing that with the software I make. And so I really looked at this, and Claire will tell you I probably drove her crazy with my questions. How could this somehow be abused? And I just could not poke a hole in it. I tried. I talked to multiple people. Basically, this codifies what you're doing today and puts Claire in a better position, puts the city manager, whoever that may be, in a better position to be able to manage things that state law already holds them responsible for. So
that's item 3. Item 4, this is filing for office. So the nexus of this topic was really just some questions about what are options that are legal and viable around candidates for municipal office having some skin in the game. So that was really the ask that this group look at that. And so the next slide is super busy, but I don't expect you all to read all that. I just want to share that we put some real time and energy into understanding what our guardrails are in state law around options for skin in game for filing for office. And they really are: 1, you can create a petition only, whereby those filing for office need to submit a petition, and we'll go into the details of that. Or option 2 is a petition filing fee option, one or the other. And so those were really the primary mechanisms we saw and that are predominant at other cities as ways in which to create some skin in the game. Specifically, state law talks about what that petition threshold looks like, and so I'll go into the detail of how that would be applied on this next slide. But this is one where if you looked out at the comparator organizations, are other cities requiring something of their candidates? And it's a mixed answer. It is 5 require a filing fee or a petition in lieu of filing fee, 5 require a petition only, and 7 don't have a filing fee or petition. So it's very mixed. Every city's kind of doing their own thing there. Steve will talk on the next slide about the Commission's recommendation and preference for petition only. But I did just want to show on this slide, and the reasons why on this slide, if we were in the state right now where petitions were required, how that would apply is the state law says that it's the greater of either 25 signatures or 1/2% of total votes received in the most recent Lewisville mayoral race. In this case, that was 5,200 votes, so that would require 27. So the greater of 25 or 27 is 27. So that would mean if this were in place today during this current season, each candidate would be required to submit 27 signatures as part of their application. Again, this is not in place today, but that's just using that as an example if we move to this.
So, and just to back up just a little bit, there was one other item that we talked about and kind of decided against, and that would have been to change the minimum age. And I believe state law will let you set a minimum age of 21, and that's it. You can't go any higher than that. So that was an option, really no consensus on that. But we did think that perhaps having a petition in place to where if a person decided they wanted to run for council, hey, you got to go talk to 27 qualified voters. That's a piece of cake. Anybody can do that. You probably do it in an afternoon or two. But that just basically ensures that you've thought it through enough to be able to talk to another human being about it. I think, if we look in our past history as a city, we've had some people show up and put their name in a hat, and then you never hear from them again. So, and some of those people, to their own detriment, they'll end up with ethics complaints filed against them because they don't know what to do. So I think, having this very low bar of 27 might prevent a little of that in the future. It would not apply to this election. You would have to get this approved by voters. But.
So just to add to that, for you all, as you all considered this one, you could have gone with the petition or filing fee. Why the petition only?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. So when you set a filing fee, state law says they can do a petition in lieu of a filing fee. But we didn't want the money anyway. It's not about money. We don't want somebody buying a seat. I want actual skin in the game, and I presume that's what you guys want as well. So really the petition was all we cared about. So kind of where we are on that.
You've got number 5, the next one as well.
Yeah, so charter commission size. We increased the size of council, and the question was brought up, is there any other board to increase the size of? Charter commission is 5 members, and evidently that's the only board in the charter where the number is fixed by the charter. So anything else, if you guys see a need to increase or whatever the size, you can just do it by vote, but this is the only one in the charter. It might have been it might have been good to have 7. I don't know if you want to get any bigger than 7. That might get a little unruly, but it could possibly let each one of you appoint somebody or direct somebody from a district, or you can mix it up and get different demographics or whatever you want to try to do. So that's an option for you. Increase the size to 7.
And then item 6, the final one is correction ballot language. So this disclaimer, the language at the top is not expressly what would be on a ballot, but it's an example of what something could look like on a ballot. So it would say that something to the effect of the Lewisville City Charter be amended throughout to correct non-substantive errors such as punctuation and grammar, harmonize conflicting sections, update gendered language, and eliminate reference to position titles that no longer exist. So I'm going to tackle 3 of those 4 colored areas, and then Steve's going to tackle one as well. So on punctuation and grammar, I won't bore you guys on the details, but we did get in and look at Oxford commas and all kinds of very exciting things like that. And between the staff team and the city attorney's team, we've identified about 385 spots in the document that we could do some cleanup on, just how the sentence structure works, how it's formed, etc. None of it's particularly substantive, it's just for clarity's sake. The next is harmonizing conflicting sections. So 2 items that had come up as just challenging items is one in section 310 versus 301. The issue currently, it's spoken to in 2 different spots about what is the minimum number of affirmative votes for a council action to be approved. So it does say in 3.01 that is requires 4 council members, but then elsewhere in 3.10 right now it says it only requires 5 for a quorum, and a majority of the 5, which would be 3, would be enough. So that's where there's conflict within the document. 310 or the 4 was the one that has pre-existed, the other one tied to a more recent election, and so our thoughts were to reconcile those to clarify that it takes 4 affirmative votes. The next is on 4.07, there's a section that talks about how the city council can, let's see. Okay, I thought I fixed the notes in here, but they're not. So the notes are not correct on that bullet, but the point is that on 4.07, other departments, it talks about how council can create or adjust departments. And during the last election in 2021, that specific issue was brought up, and the citizens voted to switch that to city manager. So this would clarify that and remove that section. The other thing I wanted to mention is just there's a couple of references to a city tax assessor, which is a position that hasn't existed for a long time. And so that last thing about eliminating references would remove reference to those positions. And then Steve will talk about gendered language.
So gendered language, do we have the slide with the city secretary?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So just to give you an example, we're not trying to do anything political here, but gendered language, I think, here's an example. The city manager shall appoint the city secretary. City secretary shall authenticate by his signature, record in full about blah, blah, blah. It's just language like that is. That's all it is. We would change that to there or just spell out city secretary. So not trying to do anything political here or whatever, just clean up the language. I know we do have a section in the charter. It's like a paragraph. Don't know when it was added, but it says something to the effect of any usage of the male applies equally to the female. That was kind of a punt. So it would be nice to clean it up, but as a group, you know, we couldn't reach consensus on whether to recommend this to you, because the question is there, would people take this the wrong way in the current political climate, and it caused the whole thing to fail. So we're going to punt that to you guys, and you can talk it through and direct city staff however you want. One other possible idea would be that if you decided not to put this on the ballot, then in the sections where we are touching things, you could possibly direct staff to just fix those sections. So we're fixing a section that talks about the city secretary. You could go ahead and change the word his at that point if you wanted to, assuming that Liz and everybody agrees that's okay to do. So anyway.
So tell me if I'm mischaracterizing this, but I think it's from the commission. Want to move or recommend moving forward with correction ballot language and really just kind of punting to the council if you choose to go with that, whether you want to include the gender language or not.
That's correct. Yeah, all the rest of the items were 100% a go on. Yeah. It's that last item we weren't quite sure about, so didn't want to misrepresent that.
So that's item 6. Those are our 6 items. So just recap. One is council compensation, the recommendation of moving mayoral pay to $400 a month and council member pay to $300 a month. Item 2 is to clarify passage of an ordinance would be on a single reading. 3 would be to clarify the reporting relationship of city secretary to the city manager. 4 would be creating a petition requirement for filing for office. 5 would be increasing the charter commission size from 5 to 7. And then 6 was the correction ballot language we just walked through just a moment ago. To just conclude our presentation, here we are on the 27th. It is a relatively short timeline if you all wanted to move forward with a quick election, but you all have flexibility. Here's the great news. You all can call election in May, you can call one in November, or none at all. You can take all these recommendations, none of these recommendations, it's completely up to you. But what we do have planned is a regular agenda item at the meeting next week so that you all could deliberate and consider what next steps you want to take as far as if you want to call an election, on what timing you might want to call an election, and then which of these items you would want staff to then develop clear ballot language around and set for a future charter election. I think that covered it all. Yes, please.
If they want to call a May election, what's the deadline?
Oh yeah, thank you. If you want to call a May election, the deadline is February 14th, just like the filing deadline. So if you all wanted to go quickly with that, we would need to call a special meeting between the February 3rd meeting and February 14th to add that to the ballot for May.
All right, questions, comments, concerns?
Y'all need a consensus, kind of?
I mean, if y'all, it'd be interesting to hear what your thoughts are right now.
May looks good to me. I think we need to get it over with. But this gender language, I mean, come on, some people need to use some common sense.
Yeah, that's,
But I know it's a rarity, but
is there a way to
I'll
say
go
that,
with
is there a
the-
way to say that without saying gendered? Is there a way to say something different than say that word, possibly?
We toyed around with it. That was the best one we came up with, but open to other ideas,
Should it be
absolutely.
considered
That seems to
grammar?
be,
I don't
that seems to
know.
be the
it
buzzword
is
out
a
there,
grammar, it's a
so.
grammar thing.
It's grammar.
It's grammar, it's really not, it has nothing to, never mind. I gave myself a hole.
Bob, any thoughts, comments?
I think I'm in agreement, I guess I agree with all the recommendations. So,
That's what we agree.
I'd say call the election.
I'm definitely in favor of calling an election. You know, the one for council compensation is always hard. Especially when you're like I am and I'm up for re-election right now. That's a difficult one to say that I want to put on the charter. But I do like what you said about, you know, kind of where we are in comparison, and really if this is something that would be replacing somebody's ability to work overtime, that makes a lot of sense to me, and certainly no one here is doing it for the money.
No. Most people think that we're paid anyway.
Yeah, they think that we're paid as full-time
Oh,
employees.
yeah, we're not, but we pay more than the $50 a meeting on things. Add it all up.
So, right. I mean, I can be supportive of it. It's just, you know, it's one of those difficult positions to be in because it looks like we're, you know, recommending to give ourselves a raise, you know, at a very inopportune time. But logically speaking, it makes sense. So, and then all the rest of them, sound good to me.
Councilmember Jones?
Yeah, I'm in support of it. I think we can simply clean up the language. I mean, it's just grammar, it's just English. I'm like, you know, we can't deal with it, you know, because the city manager can be a male or a female. You know, it's not restrictive. So I think we can change that. If we can just clean that up.
We'll try to work with legal to see what.
If we can't, then put that on the ballot.
I have a couple, Councilwoman Kay, do you have anything else to add?
I think the Charter Review Commission has never been an easy commission to sit on, ever. And y'all have done a great job. And we appoint the citizens. I think we take our citizens' recommendation. None of them are outlandish. I mean, they're all very sensible. And we put it to the people, let them decide. I don't think we take anything out. I'm going with the people that we instill trust in to bring these forward. Let's put them to the people.
I did have one, so I'm just looking at the charter elections that we've called since 2000. And, you know, in the early 2000s, we had 9 and 13. That's a lot. And then it looks like we almost kind of said, okay, well, maybe we need to pull that down some, and then so we did 2 and 4. And with the 4, only 3 passed. I just wanted to throw it out there and see, does anybody else have any thoughts on the number of propositions we want to bring, and if we feel like 6 is a good number, or if it's too many?
I don't think
It'd probably be too many in the November election when they have all
Definitely.
the state stuff.
Yeah.
You're not really, I can't think of anything else that's going on, so, except ISD, so it's not, I don't think it's that taxing. You know, it may be a page and maybe just page, I can't see it.
Otherwise,
They don't
we're going to
have
be
to- they don't
waiting
have- there's
another
no
5
bonds,
years just to
right?
clean stuff up.
There's no bonds, and they have the districts now, so everybody in Lewisville is voting on different, so it's not, shouldn't be that much of a burden.
I think it's going to be better in May than in November.
Yeah.
For sure, yeah.
I have a couple thoughts I'm going to put in the room. Please feel free to feedback on that. So the first thought I had around compensation, is there a way to word that in such a way that this thought's clear in my head, but I'm going to screw everything out, to where it doesn't take effect until the next election cycle for that that person. That I
Absolutely.
think gets away the optics problems that you might have if you're running for election currently, so.
So it just puts it off on the people that run next year.
That, well, no.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
So like, for example,
Yes, I
yeah, you guess.
I'm giving you a hard
All
time.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, just curious about that.
Absolutely, yeah, we could add that in.
Because I think that helps with the optics of it.
What are you saying, that if you're elected this year, that you would continue to get $50 a year
Until the next one.
Until you go again.
till
Yep.
you're reelected?
Or until
No,
next
for
time the
12
seat came
months.
up. No, I'm saying when the seat came up. So by way of example, if William has 2 years left, then the next
Oh,
time,
that's too
he would bump up
confusing.
when that seat comes up.
Yeah.
Another option is you could just delay it a year.
Yeah,
You could
that's
say
what I was
like
thinking.
I was thinking you were talking about, it'll go into effect in 12 months.
Yeah,
Kind of like
that's
what we
what I
did
was
with
thinking
Castle
too.
Hills,
Yeah.
making it, a date in the future.
I think 12 months would be,
So it shows you're not looking for instant gratification on it. No.
No.
I'm not a big fan of any kind of barriers to filing for election, personally. I know it's a small hurdle, but if it's that small of a hurdle, then I don't even know that it's worth doing, frankly. I would be persuaded differently if we ever had elections where we had to call an election and we had to go through expense, and then somebody didn't show up and that was the only expense we had. But I don't think we've had this situation, right?
I don't know if we've had, I think you've had a situation where you had a candidate who filed and then they basically never did
They
anything else.
ghosted everything.
They ghosted everything, but I think there was still an
Still
election
election
held
anyway.
because there was
Big
another
cost to the
position on
But he
it.
ghosted that too.
Right, but I'm saying like we wouldn't have been able to cancel an election.
We didn't save any money, we wouldn't
We
have saved
wouldn't
any money
have,
with
the
it.
city would not have saved taxpayer dollars.
It's a convenience for the incumbent.
But if this would have been, if this would have been in effect, the chances are, because there was absolutely nothing done but an application, there wouldn't have been an election because that person wasn't going to go out
I think
and work on that.
for that position that they were vying for, I think that's true, but I think there was another person running, or there was another election we were paying for at that time.
that's why we've been Bob, right? So Bob, what?
Bob,
did
I
that-
was the only,
I was unopposed.
He was unopposed.
Or-
I would thought there was another reason.
that was it.
I can confirm by the next meeting, but I didn't think there was.
That'd be interesting data to have, for sure.
A lot of other places are doing it, and there are so many people that file, which is their prerogative and right to do that, that their first steps in the city hall is filing, and they've never been to a meeting, they know really nothing about it. They need to do something to know that they are actually going to actively seek out this seat.
Which is do we know how much money an election costs the city?
I think our last one was, what, 40 some odd, 50,000?
How much?
It's around 20.
Around 20.
And that's just the regular election, and then if it goes into a runoff, it's more?
Last year, the runoff was 55.
Okay.
Because we didn't share in the cost.
Oh, right, so the runoff is even more
Can be.
expensive if nobody else is doing a runoff as well. Okay. I mean, that's really what it's about.
Yeah, I know.
Is,
The number of signatures is nothing. It really isn't. It's just showing that you're going to put,
you're going to put the effort in.
what did
you're
you
gonna take it
say?
seriously.
Skin in the game, to put the effort in to seek out certified voters.
I mean, yeah, you're talking about, you have to talk to 26 people, because you, in theory, should be one of those.
Yeah, you should
voters.
be. You can obviously sign your own petition.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to know for sure in the past 20 years or so how we would have avoided an election if we potentially avoided an election if we had that happen.
I'll say we did.
So, and then the last thing I've got on, I have two more things. So one, the language changes, I'm all for that, provided that we follow the grammar we all grew up with. And I think that gets around the whole gender concerns. For example, I wouldn't use they and their instead of him and her. I'd use him/her, or the actual name of the position, rather than the theys and theirs.
Yeah.
I think that gets around any kind of concerns we have about gender, I would think.
Yes.
And then finally, I'm all for a May election. I think I talked with Claire about this earlier. I don't think there's anything else going on in November. It'd just be a cost for the city. There's not a great reason to delay that till November. Any other comments before we move on? Awesome. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Great work.
Absolutely.
Thank you. We have 15 minutes until we go into the bigger room. We have the city. We have the enhanced Americans Resident Satisfaction Survey tool improvements. Do you think we can do this in 15? Is that too much for you? Okay, thank you.
All right, let me get out of the way here. My name is Ashley Carlisle. I'm the budget manager. I'm in the city manager's office. James Kuhnke is going to be presenting with me tonight as well. We're going to talk to you about a new tool for our resident satisfaction survey. We're going to talk a little bit about what we saw with our 2024 results, and then we'll talk about our timeline as well. So I think we probably need to start off with the why, right? Why are we interested in surveying our community? And I think everyone in this room understands the importance, but for those that may be watching online, we wanted to talk a little bit about the data behind some of this. So in today's world, only 1 in 3 Americans have high trust in our state and local government. Now, if you compare that to federal, typically your local government performs better than your state government, and then better than your federal government as well. Gallup reported just a few years ago a 10% drop in Americans' trust in local government's ability to handle local problems. And then lastly, over on the far right there, we saw a decrease in the trust score for government leaders when it comes to how you evaluate trust in societal leaders. And what they mean by societal leaders is they're also considering CEOs, they're considering journalists, scientists, they're also considering your neighbors and your coworkers too. And those last 2 categories in particular rank very high in trust, even if those same people are also your government leaders. So if we want to build trust, right, we have a foundation there. We need to establish that foundation and then build upon it. And in order to do that, we have to understand our community's needs and their preferences. We can't be everywhere all at once, right? So we have to rely on our community to tell us what are their frustrations, what are their concerns, what are their ideas, right? And sometimes we'll see 2 things happen. We could see minority voices being washed out by the majority, or we could see the opposite of that too. We could see a small, passionate minority group speak louder than the majority. So we want to make sure that we're taking that into account when it comes time to survey our community. So let's talk a little bit about conventional ways of community engagement. So you're all familiar with your formal city council meetings, what we're doing tonight, Planning and Zoning Commission, some more formal type engagement opportunities. And then you've also got your survey method. So that's your telephone survey, and then your paper surveys as well. I wanted to point out this chart over here on my right. This is from Pew Research back in 2018. What this is showing is the decline in response rates for telephone surveys. I did try to find an updated chart from this. In fact, Pew Research stopped doing research on telephone response rates in 2018. 2019 moving forward was all your online platform-based survey methods. So James is going to talk a little bit about data reliability.
Thank you. So survey results are only as effective as the data that you collect. And our resident satisfaction survey for the past decade plus has been an opt-in online survey. Now, I've talked to you before about the strengths and weaknesses there. Weakness has always been that it's not scientifically valid in terms of the results. You don't have a breakdown of results that match a response pool that matches the population you are surveying. And as a result, you will find that some communities within your community are under or overrepresented. For example, our resident satisfaction survey, more than half of respondents have lived here 20 years or longer. But that is not the case of our resident population overall. Additionally, you look at our resident satisfaction survey, we have response rates below 10% for Black, Latino, and Asian populations, but all 3 of those are more than 10% of our population. And those percentages, even though we pushed hard to reach those populations, those percentages have not gone up over the past 5 years. So we know that it's not a scientifically valid. I can tell you absolutely with a 3.5% margin of error that these numbers are correct. What an online opt-in survey does to account for that is you have a larger number of responses. For a typical telephone survey, it's 401. A cheap one is 201, but that gives you a big margin of error. A really fancy schmancy one would be more like 601. After that, there's no benefit to going bigger. 401 responses. We're getting 1,000, sometimes as many as 1,500 responses on some of our surveys. So you're hoping to get so many responses that anecdotally you get better results. It's not an even Steven apples to apples trade, but that's what you try and get out of that. One real risk with opt-in online surveys is a chance of what's called survey bombing. And we've avoided this for the most part. We had an example when we did the College Street pool survey. You might remember, a couple of years ago, we were looking at whether to convert the College Street pool into the splash park. And so we did a survey. And the survey results came back very, very negative, saying, no, don't touch our pool. I go there all the time. But you looked at the response deeper, you saw people talking about swim lessons and stuff at the pool that hadn't been offered there in years. They talked about things that weren't happening. And you saw duplicated results, cut and paste results, where you have 4 or 5 different survey responses that were word for word identical. So either they were all cutting and pasting off the same script as a group, or as one person entering multiple times. And the nature of the survey, we couldn't tell you for sure what it was, but we could tell clearly there was a concerted effort to create those negative responses. Now, if you look at the public response to the splash park now, and the people using it, and the way people love it, even the people living right next to it, that survey was wrong. And it was wrong because a small group of people who had a strong, passionate viewpoint deliberately chose to survey bomb our results. That's never happened with our resident satisfaction survey until 2024. And it did happen there. There's a lot of math behind this. I won't go into the whole bit of math, but basically what we saw is we had about 100 additional responses based on our average over the past few years. And those 100 responses were overwhelmingly and repetitively negative on everything. Every single issue they were negative on, until they got halfway through the survey when we started asking, have you been to Leela? And if they said no, they didn't get the Leela questions. If they said yes, they did. And all of a sudden those 100 people went away. And the Leela results were very comparable to the past. And then we started asking demographics. Who are you? Where do you live? How old are you? Do you have kids? And those 100 people disappeared. We had the highest attrition rate we've ever had on a survey. And that attrition rate was the normal attrition that we've had last year plus 100 people. So there's 100 surveys that deliberately created negative results in the survey. And we can document how that happened. And as a result, what you saw was statistical anomalies in those results. Usually, the advantage of a year-to-year annual survey is you don't have big changes year-to-year unless something big happens. For example, if you're asking, how safe do you feel? It's going to be pretty much the same within a few percentage points, but if the day somebody takes a survey, the house next door, there's a SWAT raid, and there's gunshots, and there's explosion, they're going to probably give a much lower score, right? But outside of that, you're going to have a variance of usually 2 to 3 points year to year, 4 to 5 points if it's a real big change. You can watch trends, that's the advantage. What we saw here was changes that were 3, 4, even 10 times what that normal trend would be. And it was because of those 100 bomb responses. So based on that, we've hit the point now where if people have figured out a way to manipulate the data, we need to find a better set of data. And an online opt-in survey will not provide us better data. We'll have a way to secure it. And that's where the staff recommendation coming out of that survey, talking to Claire, talking to management, now talking to you, is we need to find a better tool. I'm going to hand it back to Ashley because she's going to talk to you about the better tool we believe we have found.
All right, so in the interest of time, I'm going to skip over some of these things and just talk about the highlights. Really what we're talking about here is when it comes to our residents, we have U.S. Census Bureau data on who our residents are. We know their race, we know their ethnicity, their age, their income, gender, we know all of these factors. On top of that, we also get annual updates from the American Community Survey as well. And the reason that that is important is because the tool that we're discussing tonight, it's called Zen City, they can take all of that data into account. So when we see those small changes from year to year, Zen City can take all of that into account. So I'm not going to talk a whole lot about the internet use. I think everyone in here knows the internet is a thing. There's 2 things I wanted to highlight on this slide here. This bullet point right here, 88% of people 65 or older are using the internet. 90% of those with a high school education or less are using the internet. So the point I want to make here is that the majority of our residents are using the internet, which makes it a really good tool for this continuous engagement that we're looking for. And then again, this is just some more data on that internet usage. You can see here this goes from 2000 to 2023. 3 out of the 4 age groups are clustered around that high 90%. And then that 65 and up that I just mentioned on the prior slide, that's that lower line down here. But you can see in terms of trending up that they're seeing that highest increase year after year. And then Americans check their phones on average 96 times per day or once every 10 minutes. I'm sure in the time that James and I have been talking, someone has checked their phone. They might have seen an ad for a resident satisfaction survey. So let's talk a little bit about what this platform is. So we currently use ZenCity. We use some of their other features. Right now we're using it to analyze social media sentiment. We're able to do smaller surveys. We can also create what they're called engage pages. They're basically hubs of engagement. It's like a landing page for a certain topic. And we've been able to use those smaller surveys. I think we did one recently for a grant application for neighborhood services. So that's an example of how we're already using it. This platform, this module is a little bit different. So this is essentially a targeted ad. So if you're scrolling on Facebook, for example, you're going to see an ad that says, tell us more about Lewisville. We've got some examples of that here in just a second. I've actually got a screenshot here. But the important thing that I want to call out here is that ZenCity compares the people who are responding to our demographics, and they can shift based on who's responding. So if we start seeing an overrepresentation in our older population or our white population, those targeted ads shift a little bit. And then on the back end, as people start responding to the survey, there's something that ZenCity can do. It's essentially a weighting factor at the end, so they can course correct on those results and make sure that at the end of the day we've got a statistically valid survey and that it represents our community. And then some of the other features that it comes with, so it takes about 5 minutes or less. There are several standard questions, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. And then there's also some custom questions that we can add at the end. Staff gets access to a dashboard that has live results, so we can see those as they're coming in. And then we can issue reports. We can do it annually. We can do it semi-annually. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then there's also the ability to have some integration in our website in terms of interactivity with those survey results. So let's talk a little bit more about how this works. Basically, we work with ZenCity to finalize that questionnaire. We push it out, let's say over a period of 2 months or so. We get that representative sample. Then we receive that in-depth report, so that's when we start looking at, okay, what are our areas of improvement, what's our action items, that sort of thing. And then we can take a look at those open-ended questions. And when we talk about the open-ended questions and those custom questions, we could really use those custom questions to focus on hot topics. So if we want to learn about what residents think about our beautification efforts or Business 121, we can use those customized questions to be geared towards those topics. So then the next few slides are just some images of what this might look like here. Here's an example of an Instagram ad. I had this on a few slides back. Just says, how do you feel in your city? And then it'll come up with a question. In this case, it says, when it comes to the threat of crime, how safe do you feel in your neighborhood? I think for the purposes of our survey, we'll do a scale of 1 to 5. Our previous survey was 1 to 4 with the option of no opinion, right? So it'd be pretty similar to that. And then on the internal side, this is an example of what that dashboard would look like. So up here in the upper corner here, we'd see 46% satisfaction. This is just an example survey here. And then one of the cool things is that, again, this is going to be a live feed, so we're getting that data in continuously. And we can start drilling down, so we can see, okay, who are our most satisfied residents? Who are our least satisfied residents? We can drill down into questions. So this question down here, this is question 6 on this example survey. It's about the availability of affordable housing. So
Actually, this is a really important topic. I don't want to rush you through this. I'm going to suggest that we leave, go out and come back in and get it finished, because I don't want to rush this topic. It's an important topic.
that's perfect. That sounds great.
Okay.
Just gonna open it and come back.
Yep, we will go out, we will open the meeting, and we'll come right back in. And 2 minutes.
Oh, sorry.
We're bringing the gavel.
I'll bring that. Councilor Griggs, Councilor. that better? Fantastic, all right. All right, so we are going to call a regular session of the City Council meeting to order. It is 7 p.m. We do have quorum. We're going to do our invocation and our Pledge of Allegiance, and then we're going to go back into workshop for just a few minutes. You are welcome to come into workshop with us. We're just going to finish off a quick presentation and then come back out again. So we'll stand for invocation, please. Councilmember Bob Troyer will lead us in invocation.
Please stand and join me in a moment of silent contemplation. Amen.
Thank you, Councilmember Troyer. Councilmember Jones, will you please lead us in the pledges of allegiance?
Please join me in the pledges to the American and Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, at this time, we're going to adjourn back over, not adjourn, we're going to go back into the workshop session. And you're welcome to join us. Again, we're just going to, we're just finishing a presentation. We'll be back out in probably about 10 minutes or so.
We're going to check on what the URL will say, because people are looking at URLs now with cybersecurity concerns. Beyond that, we have the option, the ability to put things out with some screenshots and say, if you see these kinds of things, these are legitimate. The risk of that is somebody who really, really is eager to be a bad actor could try to duplicate that. Well, they have to really want to. So we think the branding will help a lot.
There are those out there that really want to,
Oh,
that
there
really
are.
have.
There are, yes. We believe the branding will help a lot. When people see the logo and they see the city brand, the whole scheme in there. I just don't know if we go through our URL or theirs. We're going to find out.
Yeah, our URL would be better, I think, if we do that.
If they can do that, yes.
That's right.
Yeah, I had the same question too, just because I think the reason that people stop taking phone surveys is because I just get all sorts of spam on, through every single day. It's just spam calls all day long. And, now we're starting to get into that with all the pop-ups and things. And so how do people know if this is legit and I can trust this? It's not somebody trying to get me to click something so that they can, install some malware on my device.
Yep. Other questions?
Sorry,
Councilman?
go ahead.
No. Troyer, do you have any questions? Concerns, comments?
I guess the first thing that popped into my mind is there an additional cost on this, or is it covered, do we have it covered already in our budget, or?
Yeah, we would be able, there is an additional cost, and we are able to absorb it this year.
Councilman Meredith, do you have anything above and beyond what you've already talked about?
No, good.
It does look like you have the ability to customize the URL,
Okay.
and so we should be able to make the survey specifically.
If it's an illegitimate URL, then they'll get kicked out.
That's
If you use the same URL come in twice with a token at the end of it, you'll know if somebody's duplicating it.
Yeah, and we do own the LewisvilleTexas.gov domain now.
Okay.
So we wanted to leverage the .gov to ensure it's coming from an official body. We can do that as well.
All right, any other thoughts, questions? Just
Not on this, but also on the agenda, the item that Councilman Meredith brought up earlier. There is a typo in the memo that the agenda is posted correctly, but it is 222,000 approximately, not the 285. Was that
284.
284 that was listed?
good catch.
So,
Okay.
unless you want to pull it.
Any other thoughts, comments? Okay, let's go back to us. Thank you for the presentation.
She's all serious.
Just come back from vacation.
Just say no.
She can be checked.
Oh, yeah, that's at the speaker.
We'll just let my wife take a seat. Thank you. All right. Public hearing, C1. Consideration of adoption of a Business 121 corridor plan. In 2023, the City Council directed staff to begin planning efforts for the Business 121 corridor to pursue an actionable plan to improve safety, aesthetics, and economic vitality in the corridor. The planning process involved data collection and engagement with a variety of stakeholders. The Business 121 Corridor Plan has 72 actionable strategies within 3 key themes of mobility improvements, quality of place improvements, and economic vitality policies. The corridor vision statement anticipates that the Business 121 will remain a vital transportation corridor for the region, will be a vibrant place to live and do business, and will serve as a proud gateway to Lewisville. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended unanimous 7-0 adoption of the plan on December 3rd, 2024. It's the recommendation that the City Council adopt the Business 121 Corridor Plan as set forth in the caption above. We have a presentation from Michelle Berry. Take it away.
Good evening, Council. So I'm really excited to be here tonight to present to you the Business 121 Corridor Plan. We are a little behind where we hope to have this plan executed, but we did, I think, the consultant team, half, and their sub-consultants, I think, put together a great plan. We tried to keep the plan condensed. There are only 4 chapters. The first chapter is the planning context. The second chapter is the corridor framework. The third looks at specific, oh, I'm sorry, this isn't projecting up there. Give me just a second to fix that. There we go. Now you can see my presentation. So the third is looking at specific catalytic sites along the corridor, and the fourth is really looking at the implementation. Most of the actual data that supports all of this is in the appendices, which is how we kept the plan itself a little bit more reduced in length. So the recommendations are looking at the future development and the vision. So this is kind of a map exploring the potential future land uses within the study area to give guidance for future development. This is the corridor concept plan. It depicts the recommended locations for mobility and safety improvements, neighborhood investments, and commercial vibrancy efforts within the study area. And then we have 3 main strategies that came out of this plan: quality of place, economic vitality, and mobility. These are all interrelated, and mobility is where we really capture the safety components. There are 12 plan goals that I don't necessarily want to read through, but they support all of these visions and the 3 key themes. And those are broken down further into different strategies. And we'll go kind of through those. But those are the strategies. Those are kind of more of the action items that staff will be working on. There were 3 catalytic sites that we looked at. One is where Mill Street is being realigned with Business 121. One was Southwest Parkway. There's a lot of investment happening there with Glory Park and a complete street project on Southwest Parkway. And the other was the Lakeland and Bel Air Plaza. There's just so much vacant parking lot there. We wanted to give ideas for how that could potentially be redeveloped in the future through adding additional uses that the market supports and maybe some greenery and open spaces that also further our Lewisville 2025 plan. So we have 72 total strategies that are across 12 goals. The timeframes are short-term, medium-term, and long-term. They have some order of magnitude costs associated with them, and then they also have some other parameters that are associated with them. So that implementation matrix looks like this. There are some strategies that were identified by the Corridor Review Committee and the Council and the Planning and Zoning Commission as priority strategies, and those ones are bolded. So through the plan you can see those. That doesn't necessarily correspond with the time frame. It's just these are things that were very important to the community and to the decision makers. So we have those bolded throughout the plan. So this plan did go to the Planning and Zoning Commission. They did recommend approval. Since then, we actually took it back to all of the department directors just for their final take to make sure that we're good to go on implementation of this plan. And there were a few tweaks that were made from what went to the Planning and Zoning Commission. One was the time frames. So short term is 0 to 5 years instead of 0 to 2 because we need that extra time. Medium term is 5 to 10 instead of 2 to 5, and long term is over 10 years instead of 5 years, just because there are 72 things to do. That's a lot to do. We already have a lot of other things to do, so we need a little more wiggle room. There were a few strategies that were a little bit redundant, so we combined those, and those are looking at future alternative roadway sections. One was really a specific mechanism to do that, so we combined what was originally 12.2 and 12.3. And then there were two strategies that really the state kind of preempted us in taking those steps further, so we just dropped those from the plan altogether. And those were mostly as related to mobile home parks and different things for those. So our next steps tonight are we're hoping that to get this plan adopted, and then staff will begin working on implementation. We're getting a key group together to work on implementing this plan so that we can start to see some of this work come to fruition. So with that, this is a public hearing, and staff's recommendation is to adopt the Business 121 corridor plan with the changes since it was presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay. Thank you very much. We have Richard Lukey, our planning director, available for comments and questions as needed. City Secretary, are there any comment cards? Yes. Thank you. Any questions or comments from council?
I do, Mayor, or Mayor Pro Tem. This has been several years now in the making. It was one of my goals to get done, and I'm so proud of our staff. Y'all have done blood, sweat, and tears, and we've had numerous meetings. The citizens came out, and a great majority of them to help on the planning of this, and I'm ready to get this ball rolling. But with that said, I'd like to close the public hearing.
So, point of order here, I overlooked the spot where I opened the public hearing. So the public hearing is open. If there's anybody in the audience who would like to make a comment. Thank you. Now we'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I move to close the public hearing.
Second?
Enthusiastically second that motion.
Fantastic. Okay, council, please vote. I assume I'm not voting here, right?
You can vote.
I can vote? Fantastic. Okay, motion passes 6-0. Absolutely, please do.
I wanted to just make one comment. I know that all of council has been in great support of this, but I do want to thank Councilmember Jones in particular. This was, I remember first coming to the city manager's office, a long time ago, and Brandon Jones was the one who basically was like, we got to do something about Business 121. And so putting this in front of you guys budget-wise was directly related to that request years prior. We just got the capacity to be able to do it in this last year. So I wanted to thank Councilman Jones.
Well, thank the staff, because the staff did all the heavy lifting on this. This was something, because when I was actually on P&Z and got on council, it was one of the things, like, we were like, gotta get Old Town together, It was basically rolling a boulder uphill. And I looked, I'm like, well, it's starting to come over the top. We need to think about Business 121 too. And so I just thank the staff for their effort. And sorry if I drove you guys crazy over the years, but we're getting it going. Nobody's happier to see this than me.
Fantastic.
And I move with that. If there are no anything else, I'll make a motion to approve the motion.
A second.
Second. Vote.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. All right.
It's okay to clap.
It's worth applause. Thank you very much. Okay. Announcement: the public hearing is now open. Item 2, public hearing. Consideration of a resolution of the City Council of the City of Lewisville, Texas, certifying, and I'm sorry, I'm going to start over again. Consideration of a resolution of the City Council of the City of Lewisville, Texas, certifying the City of Lewisville is eligible to receive grant assistance, accepting a grant award from the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, designating the Director of Parks and Recreation to act on behalf of the City of Lewisville relating to the grant award and providing an effective date. Lewisville Parks and Recreation Department seeks approval to submit a grant application to the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, TWPD, to participate in the Boat Access Grant Program to redesign and construct boat ramp number 2. The grant provides 75% matching funds for the planning and construction of public boat ramp facilities. Matching funds are available and have been earmarked within city capital improvements funds. Staff is working with Half Associates to prepare a grant application that will maximize scoring opportunities in this application. recommended the City Council approve this resolution as set forth in the caption. City Secretary, do we have any comment cards? No. Thank you. Council, any questions? I did open the public hearing. I did this time, yeah. Thank you, Councilwoman Green. Keep me straight.
I got you back.
Yep.
Well, if there's no discussion.
Yep. No questions, comments, discussion?
Okay.
All right, motion to close public hearing.
I will move to close the public hearing.
Can we get a second?
Second.
Okay, vote please. Passes 6-0. Item D, visitors forum.
That was just closing.
Oh,
the
I'm
public
sorry,
hearing.
I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. Motion seconded, okay. Let's vote.
Move to approve the resolution as set forth in the caption.
Second.
Seconded by Brandon Jones. Please vote. Motion passes 6-0. Now, I'd like to thank council for helping me up here. This is my first time doing this. Thank you so much for staff and council to keep me straight here.
You're doing great.
You're doing a great job.
Visitor forum. Item D, speakers must address their comments to the mayor rather than individual council members or staff. Speakers should speak clearly and state that their name and address prior to beginning their remarks. Speakers will be allowed 5 minutes for testimony. Speakers making personal, impertinent, profane, or slanderous remarks may be removed from the meeting. Unauthorized remarks from the audience, stamping of feet, whistles, yells, clapping, or similar demonstrations will not be permitted. In accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, the City Council is restricted from discussing or taking any action on items not listed on the agenda. Action can only be taken at a future meeting. My understanding is we had one speaker card. Mr. Jenkins, you have opted to not speak. Is that accurate? Are you still with us? He left. Okay, fantastic. All right, thank you.
Is it on here?
Okay, with that, I guess we move on to consent agenda. All the following items on the consent agenda are considered to be self-explanatory by the council and will be enacted with one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or member of the public so requests. For a member of the public to request removal of an item, a speaker card or e-comment must be filled out and submitted to the city secretary. City Secretary, are there any comment cards? No. Thank you. Okay, we need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
We have a second?
Second.
Please vote. Motion passes 6-0. Item F, regular hearing. 11, consideration of an ordinance amending the fee schedule of the City of Lewisville by amending fees related to solid waste and recycling services and presentation related to implementation of solid waste changes citywide. The City Council approved an exclusive franchise agreement for solid waste and recycling collection and disposal with Republic Services for Legacy Lewisville that became effective January 1st, 2021. Following the annexation of Castle Hills area, the city assumed an exclusive franchise agreement for residential solid waste and recycling collection and disposal with Community Waste Disposal, CWD. City Council directed staff to transition solid waste and recycling collection for the Castle Hills area to Republic Services exclusive franchise agreement, making the service consistent throughout Lewisville. The CWD contract is set to expire on January 31st, 2025, at which point Republic will assume all solid waste and recycling collection and disposal as outlined in the current exclusive franchise contract. This ordinance will remove the solid waste and recycling fees specific to the previously annexed area of Lewisville served by CWD. Staff has negotiated a transition plan with CWD and Republic that considers challenges for both customers and providers in the Castle Hills area. It's recommended the city staff approve the ordinance as set forth in the caption. I'd like to call Director of Public Services Aaron Russell to give a presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. So as you read into the record, we're in the middle of a transition from consolidating the solid waste and recycling service all under Republic Services. So I just wanted to give you a quick overview of the efforts that staff has made leading up to this moment. So as you are aware, a little over a year ago, Council was presented several options with respect to this transition. Option 3 was the option that was preferred by City Council, which included consolidating that service under Republic Services. So that makes all of everyone's collection once a week, where previously Castle Hills was twice a week. The other part to that option that is relevant is a rerouting of a good portion of the city to make the different zones have even distribution. And the reason that's important is we don't want to have a really heavy zone where they're working late into the night and then having a light zone the next day. So when you have even distribution, it just makes it more efficient and really improves the service to the customers. So this is a slide that was presented as part of the options. You can see in the purple, this is the parts of the city that are affected. All of Castle Hills, of course, is affected because they're transitioning from CWD service to Republic service. But in addition to that, 31% of current Republic customers will have their schedule changed. So because of that, staff has had a fairly robust communication campaign to get the word out and make sure that the customers know that the change is happening. So just to review that, in November, we started with a media release. We had an article in the eHorizons newsletter, and then we ramped that up in December with weekly social media posts. We added some videos, some short videos to that as well, and then additional newsletters and an informational pamphlet. We basically continued that in January, but then we're adding another a Everbridge call, which will be a call to all of our customers that are in our database on January 29th. That will include the pertinent information. So we're really trying to hit it from all different angles, those that want to read it, those that want to watch things in videos, and then we're also giving them a phone call as well. So more particular in the social media area, we use Nextdoor, Facebook, and Instagram. We also made really good use of our website as well. We have an interactive map, and I'm going to show you that map at the end of the presentation, where you can look up your particular address to see what zone you're in. And then, like I mentioned, we had direct access through mailers, and we'll have that call through Everbridge. So moving forward, we've got a busy week this week. So the news service does start February 3rd. This week we are trading out carts. So the new carts are being delivered in Castle Hills. I was told earlier this evening that they delivered about 2,000 carts today. So they started that work today. They'll continue through this week. So basically Republic is delivering the new Republic carts in Castle Hills. The Castle Hills residents will be able to set out their CWD garbage cart with their garbage. We want to make sure that through the month of February, we want to make sure that they understand that it needs to be empty, and then Republic will actually pick that cart up. The recycling cart that is owned by CWD will be collected with their final collection this week. So all the CWD carts will go away this week. Well, the recycling carts will go away, and the new Republic carts will be delivered, and then the old CWD garbage carts can be picked up through February. They can start setting them out now, but they're going to continue that service through February. So with that, I'll just skip over here, have a look at the website. It's really simple. So this is from our website, and you can see the different days of the week for collection. And if you go in the upper right-hand corner here, you can type in your address. It should validate, find actual addresses. You click on one, it will zoom into your address, show you where that is, and then you know which zone you're in. So fairly simple process, and we will be directing people with the call, the Everbridge call. We want to direct them to this website so they can look that up. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Council, questions, concerns, thoughts? So I have a couple things here on my mind. So first off, in addition to the great job that the city's done by putting the word out, I've seen reposts by citizens actually helping get the word out as well. So we've had citizens engagement who've reposted news stories, the video. I saw at least one video that was actually entertaining to watch, and I saw people repost that as well. So that was very nicely done. For clarity, if you had purchased, you can purchase another trash can if you wanted to, right? So
Yes.
So if you had concerns that once a week was going to overflow your trash can, you can purchase a second cart. That's
That is
available.
correct.
if you had purchased a second cart through CWD, you will have to purchase another second cart through Republic. Is that?
Unfortunately, that is
Okay,
correct.
fantastic. Just want to make sure on that. That's everything I have. So we need a motion. Councilwoman Green, we need a second.
Move to approve the ordinance as set forth in the caption.
Second.
And please vote. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, this is a little bit different, right? City Attorney, please read.
This is an ordinance of the Lewisville City Council amending the fee schedule of the City of Lewisville by amending fees related to solid waste and recycling services, providing repeal or severability and an effective date, and declaring an emergency.
Okay, please vote. Motion passes 6-0. Okay. Reports, item G. Reports about items of community interest regarding which no action will be taken. We will start with Councilman Meredith, please.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem, I have some library activities for the week. Creative Writing Workshop for Adults, Wednesday, January 29th, 6:30 to 7:30, at the Crawford Meeting Room. Registration is required. Vita Income Tax Preparation for Adults, every Thursday, January 30th through April 10th, 4 to 6:30 p.m. Every Saturday, February 1st through April 12th, 9:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Computer Lab, and no registration is required. This is a pretty good service offered through the United Way, so I would highly recommend somebody to use this service. It's a great tool. And that's all I've got.
Thank you.
I'm up. I'll try to speak here. I have some items for the Lewisville Grand Theater for the next month. First, excuse me. First of all, Kapustins Piano Concerto Number 4 featuring Chung Yu Tien, presented by the Lewisville Lake Symphony on January 31st. Texas Tunes, Bruce Robinson, presented by the City of Lewisville on February the 8th. Hello Dolly, presented by the Christian Youth Theater of DFW, February 23rd through the February 21st through the 23rd, and February 28th through March 2nd. 2 shows on February 22nd and March 1st. And as always, acoustic jam sessions every Friday night presented by the Visual Art League of Lewisville. There are 2 exhibitions going on. First of all, 2025 Four Artists Exhibition, Nam, Bruno, Lee, and Lee, presented by the City of Lewisville through March 4th, and Strictly Abstract Exhibition, presented by the Visual Art League of Lewisville through February 1st. And that's my report.
Thank you. City Attorney? Secretary? Nope.
I do have an informational item. Our contractor Axis Construction is going to begin construction on West College Street in mid-February. And so tomorrow evening in this room, we're going to be having a resident meeting for the people who will be directly affected by that construction.
Thank you. Report. Lake level?
I do have the lake level 89.3% full, 519.71 feet.
Yeah. Report. Councilwoman Green?
I just wanted to say really quickly, I guess, was that last week? We had the cleanup out at the Champion Macedonia Cemetery for MLK Day. It was freezing out there. This is the first time my schedule allowed me to go, and I was a little nervous about it because I thought it was going to be 20 degrees. But we went out there, we did a lot of hard work, and I saw some of the pictures of what it looked like 3 years ago. So, you know, that, just the huge difference that's being made in the community, but the number of people, there were all sorts of different groups there. It was so refreshing and heartwarming to see all sorts of different groups of people coming together to really just do something good for the community and preserving our history. And it was just a real honor to be part of that. I wanted to say thank you to the people who organized that event. It was very, very good, and definitely worth the allergy flare-up that I got afterward from all the pollen that was out there. But I believe they're going to be doing it again next year. Go. It's totally worth it. That's all I have.
So yeah, that was Jackie Shaw and her volunteers from Westside Baptist Church that put that together. I'm like, you made me think of that first year, because I remember Patrick came out with a short sleeve shirt and he paid the price. He gave up a lot of blood and sweat on that one. I just want to double down on the VITA volunteer tax. If you're in need of that, I grew up in college doing that as an accountant and did it afterwards. It's a great program. If you don't pay anything, they file your taxes for you. It's a great event, and they've moved up because it was 1 day a week last year. And so make sure you take advantage of that, so if we need that help, we can get more help next year from United Way. And that's all I have.
Great segue into the United Way. What an awesome weekend.
Good.
We don't know the full numbers yet, but I understand we're like 11% or something like that over last year's. So that is awesome. And I thank you to everybody that came out and those that volunteered. It was a great night to be had, a little tiresome, but that's okay. You did great, Patrick. I'd like to say that today is January 27th, and the United Nations General Assembly designated this day the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz as the International Holocaust Remembrance Day. It's a time to remember the 6 million, probably plus, Jewish victims of the Holocaust and the millions of other victims of Nazi persecution during that time. And I would say, and let's go ahead and remember the persecution of the Jewish community worldwide today, because it is still running rampant, and for some reason, it just seems like that fire is spreading. And I don't understand it. Humanity comes a long way. You cut us, we all bleed red. So it makes no sense. So I'd like for us to remember that day, and eventually get a proclamation if we can on that.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Councilwoman Green. City Manager. So real quick, so I want to second the Dancing with the Stars, or Dancing with Our Stars, I guess is what it's called, for copyright reasons. That was a lot of fun for those who came out. We're trying to frantically nominate some people. It's proven kind of hard. We're going to nominate some people next year, and it's well worth the effort, guys. So please, if you get tapped on the shoulder, consider doing it. I also want to take a quick minute here to remind everybody, it's our centennial. It's all year 100th year anniversary birthday of Lewisville, Texas, our great city. Go out to LewisvilleTexas100.com. You will see a list of all the events happening, even the events that we always do. There's special things going on in there. Just so much happening in the city right now. It's a great time to be part of Lewisville. And again, I'm going to say this, close every meeting for this year. Live in your city, don't exist in your city. Thank you so much. Okay, with that, I guess we don't have any closed session. We're not returning to workshop. And I guess we're adjourned, is that right? Yep. Do we need a motion for that or anything? Nope. All right, can I bang the gavel? Yep. We're adjourned.
A little better.